Hello friends and neighbors, my name is Lawrence and this is the language of water. In this video, I want to talk about watercolor supplies for the absolute beginner who isn't even sure they want to be a watercolor artist. If that interests you, please click the subscribe button below and continue watching. At this stage, you would be curious. You're considering maybe trying out watercolor painting. Maybe not even taking an inexpensive course somewhere, just playing with watercolors on your own. This would be the video for you. So everything I'm going to talk about in this video will cost you about $75 US dollars at the date of the making of this video. That's not super cheap, but at the end of the day, you'll either fall in love with watercolor and have supplies you can use for months, if not years, or you'll know that watercolor is not for you and you won't be out that much cash. I strongly encourage you not to go cheaper than what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you do, the paint will not move on the paper the way that it should, or the way that it would if you were to become an artist. Colors will not blend together well or not at all. And once everything is dry, the finished product will not be nearly as nice as the paint and paper that I'm going to describe in this video. So, and all of that's very discouraging and won't give you a true or accurate experience of watercolor. If you're not getting an accurate taste of the experience, how can you know if you really do or do not like them? It would be like making something to eat, like making a certain dish and not having all of the ingredients and chopping everything up with a fork because you didn't buy any knives and cooking over a piece of metal with a candle to heat it up. Like you could make something edible doing that, but it wouldn't give you an accurate or real experience of that particular food, right? Before I get to the supplies, I want to show you an example of a real quick example of what painting with the cheap supplies that lots of people start with versus what professional supplies will look like. Okay, so this is inexpensive paper, a very expensive brush, and inexpensive paint. So all I'm going to do to show you how the inexpensive stuff works together, I'm going to do just a shape. I'm going to do just sort of like this. Do it again so that we get this shape, this leafy shape. Okay, and then I'm going to sort of spread that around. And then I'm just going to touch it with a little bit of yellow, maybe here along the bottom, so you can see how the paint spreads. And I'm going to touch it with a little bit of red, maybe up here. And you can see what happens. So, and then you can see what that looks like when it dries, which will look like this. Okay, and that is how it dries. So not terrible. And this is what the exact same thing looks like with a really good brush and professional paper and professional paint. So we're going to make the same, sort of the same shape and spread around the paint inside it. And then I'm just going to touch it with a little bit of yellow on the bottom. And you can see how that flows, and a little bit of red near the top. And you can see how that flows through the paint. And we'll let those paints, sort of travel and dry. And they look like this. And those are the two together. And you can see the one on the right is the cheaper paint. It's all a little, I don't know if this is going to come out on camera. It's all just a little chalkier and thicker. It doesn't come out as fine. And when you do a whole painting like this, where the quality of the materials is not as good, then the whole painting just doesn't come out as nice. You can see how on the right, the cheaper stuff doesn't really mix as well. It doesn't spread as nicely in the paint. And it leaves sort of darker splotches rather than blended colors, I would call them. So that's a difference. When you do a whole painting like this, it makes a huge difference. And I just wanted to show you this. So now that you've seen the supplies, the cheap stuff versus the nice stuff, here's what I would recommend getting. Get yourself 3 tubes of paint, red, yellow, and blue. 3 tubes of Winsor Newton watercolor paint will cost you about 36 bucks. All the paints I'm going to talk about will cost you about 36 bucks. Make sure that they're professional and not the student grade. Watercolor tubes are tiny, but professional paints are so concentrated that they will last for months, even if you paint with them every single day. A dab of paint really goes a long way because you're always adding water to them. So you're not just painting from the tube, you're painting from what you squeeze from the tube along with water. At this stage, it's not about making art, it's about learning how watercolors interact with each other on the page. So paint a red tree with blue leaves if you don't want to, mix any paint. Um, Professional paints come in pans or tubes. My personal bias is for tubes. And like I said, Winsor & Newton, 3 tubes of paint, red, yellow, and blue will cost you about 36 bucks. Alternatively, you could get a Daniel Smith set of 6 paints. They have an introductory set. That's also, it's 6 tubes of paint, also about 36 bucks. And I've never used Mission Gold paints, but I've only ever heard really good things about them. And a set of 12 of the Mission Gold paints will also cost you about 36 bucks. So, buy some paint, good paint. Whatever paint you use, if you get the tubes, you're going to need to mix them on a palette. Use a plate from your kitchen. You don't need to buy a palette at this point. Again, it's just about learning the supplies. For paper, I would get either Arches or Stonehenge cold pressed water paper, 1 packet of 9 by 12 sheets. There's usually 12 to 15 sheets in those packets, and they cost about 20 bucks, depending on where you buy them and whether or not they're on sale. And you can paint more than one thing on a 9 by 12 sheet of paper, or you can just cut it in half and use it as 2 pieces of paper. So 9 by 12, 12 to 15 sheets, it's about 20 bucks. And then all you need is 2 round brushes. I love these Grumbacher Golden Edge brushes. They're my favorite starter brushes. I actually use them almost every single day. No one talks about these, so I'm going to do my own video on them. You're looking at here a size 3 and a size 7. That's what I would get. And these are $5 or $6 each, which is amazingly inexpensive. So like $12 for brushes. So 36 for paint, 20 for paper, 12 for the brushes. With tax and shipping, that's about 75 US dollars. Let me repeat this. If you go cheaper, you will not get the most accurate experience of watercolor that you could. And my concern with going cheaper is that it could lead you away from the watercolors that I find deeply gratifying and a lot of fun. Doing watercolor art has altered my brain chemistry for the better. That's a separate video, going to be a separate video, but I'm grateful for them. It's a wonderful experience painting with watercolor. So go out there and get yourself a handful of supplies and see if you like them. I hope that you do. And thanks for watching.